Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Delta Stewardship Council is called into order. Mr. Ray, Ms. Davenport, Dr. Hastings, and Dr. Weens are sitting up there looking formidable. Formidable. Mr. Ray, you're going to kick this off, I think.
I will, and just by way of an introduction. What we're hope to do today is bring to you an opportunity to exercise your role of oversight.
Get the mic closer to you, please.
What we're hoping to do today is create an opportunity for you to exercise your oversight responsibilities about looking at how we're implementing the Delta Plan. Over the last few months, we've had exploration with panels who came before the council exploring the role the council might play in plan implementation, and oversight was one of the issues that people thought, one of the tactics people thought would be an important way you could encourage implementation plan. And certainly people are expecting us to keep an eye on how we're doing in terms of performance and meeting the expectations that the plan lays out. Our habitat restoration actions are among the most important in the plan in terms of achieving the co-equal goals. We both need to restore the ecosystem, and as we know, if we can recover species, maybe we can get a little more flexibility in how the water supply system operates as well. So what we've tried to do today is bring to you a series of speakers. We've requested reports from state agencies about important topics that relate to the implementation of the plan, and we're hoping that the information will give you a sense of where we're at in implementing the Delta Plan, that you'll feel free to ask questions throughout the course of presentations to gain whatever additional information you think would be helpful. We're hoping you'll keep track of ideas that you think would be useful for us in following up, ways that we could follow up on today's hearing, get additional information you might need, or consider suggestions you have about follow-up activities based on your oversight work today. And then I'm going to get out of the way and let Jessica Davenport, who I don't know if you all have met previously. I don't know if she's...
I know her. She is a planner, a dangerous but competent planner working for us, right?
More than competent, and we're lucky she's come to us via the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission and the Contra Costa Resource Conservation District. I think we traded her for a sturgeon to be named later. And with her is...
She's also a famous Switzer Fellow.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. And of course we've got Dr. Lauren Hastings from our science program, and Dr. John Weens from the ISD. And then, so I'm going to step out of the way. They're going to be responsible for the afternoon's activities, but then at the conclusion of the discussion, what I'd like to do would be return and just gather your ideas about how this worked as a oversight event, and whether you think it's an effective format and ways you think we could improve this type of hearing. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jessica.
Thanks, Dan. So what I'd like to do...
You've got to get that microphone closer to you. Put it on the side and then pull the mic over to in front of you. There you go. Let's see if that works.
How's this?
Well, I don't know.
How's that?
Yeah, that's better. There you go.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased to be able to present this information to you and to bring these great speakers to talk about habitat restoration in the Delta. And as we were preparing for this session, we realized that two main themes came out. One is, how do we get restoration done? We have very ambitious targets for acreage. And also, how do we get restoration done right so that it has the outcomes that we're looking for in terms of the desired species actually using the habitat and other ecosystem functions that we care about. So the way we've organized the session is we're going to have four groupings. First of all, I'm going to give a little bit of a framework, the way the Delta Plan sets out your oversight role on habitat restoration. Lauren's going to elaborate on that in terms of the science aspects. And then John Weens from the Science Board is going to talk to you about their recent report and their recommendations. So that will kind of set the stage for our speakers from the other agencies, who are first going to give you a big picture about the regional approach to restoration. Then we'll have some reports from 3 of our 6 priority areas, people who are working on projects on the ground. And then we're going to have some insights from our science program and the Department of Fish and Wildlife about how they see these 2 themes playing out of getting restoration done and getting it right. And finally, we'll bring up everyone to have a discussion with you about what they see as the major barriers and how to overcome them. So then jumping right into your framework for oversight of habitat restoration, I've laid that out in your staff report, agenda item 9. And basically, there are a few key recommendations and policies as well as performance measures that should be guiding your oversight. So with respect to the recommendations, there's a key recommendation which is to prioritize and implement projects that restore delta habitat. And that's included as an attachment to the report. It lays out those 6 areas that I mentioned and talks about what is expected to happen in each of those areas as they become restored. It also talks about which agencies are going to do this work, and also how this gets done. And Lauren will talk a little bit more about that in terms of using best available science and adaptive management. So then looking at our policies, we have policies that require restoring habitat at appropriate elevations, and also to avoid introductions or improving habitat conditions for non-native invasive species. We also have performance measures where the Delta Plan calls for pilot projects in each of the 6 areas to get started and for us to learn from them. We also have acreage goals, which come from the biological opinions for the state and federal water projects. And there's a slight error in there. It should be 8,000 acres of tidal marsh and 17 rather than 10,000 acres to 20,000 acres of floodplain rearing habitat. And primarily the speakers are going to be addressing the tidal marsh habitat issues today. But I think they carry over to the floodplain. A lot of the themes do. So without further ado, I think I will hand off to Lauren to talk more about the
Dr. Hastings, before you begin, just a note in case you weren't here earlier, the new Dutch Consul General is going to arrive sometime around 1:45 with a delegation to introduce himself. We're going to have to ask you to hold it whenever they show up for at least a very brief introduction of the new Consul General. Okay. Dr. Hastings.
Okay. Hopefully this is on. Thank you. So one of the other policies in the Delta Plan, GP1, talks about best available science and adaptive management and requires it for ongoing water management and habitat restoration projects. And so that's an important part of doing habitat restoration, and the Delta Science Program we see as playing a key role in bringing to folks the best available science and helping them with their adaptive management. And in our Delta Science Plan, which is also called for in the Delta Plan, we have a section on adaptive management where we describe some of the ways that we will be helping. One of those ways is with what we're calling adaptive management liaisons. And this is where we envision our staff working with project proponents to help them incorporate our adaptive management framework, and also helping to bring them best available science. And this is one of the areas where we're already doing it. And one of our staff, Chris Enright, who you will be hearing from a little bit later, is already doing this. And one of the things he's been doing is working with project proponents on Lower Yolo Ranch that you heard about a couple of meetings ago, and today you'll be hearing more about Prospect Island. And from what we've heard, Chris is having a very positive impact on improving the quality of those projects by helping them with the science. And in fact, in some cases, it's also helping with the economics of the project. So we're already doing that. Other ways that we see helping is we envision putting together frameworks for doing restoration, and in this way helping to ensure consistency across the various groups that are doing restoration, and also helping them to take a landscape perspective and incorporate historical ecology, two of the principles that are in the Delta Plan. And we will also be working with them on developing landscape scale conceptual models. So with that, I think that's a good segue to our first speaker, Dr. John Weens on our Independent Science Board, who's here to talk to you about the first review that the Independent Science Board has done as required by the Delta Reform Act.
Okay.
So we're just going to do...
Members, if you have not met Dr. Weens before, I should probably tell you that I heard 2 years ago his speech at the annual Bay Delta Scientist Conference, where he was asked to give the definitive scientific answer to the question of how good does the best available science have to be. And he stood up and declared in words I actually understand. He said it has to be good enough to make a decision. And it was so remarkably refreshing, and the near riot that ensued from a sense of simple English inserted into a complex scientific discussion was also a lot of fun. And he is one of our serving members on the Delta Independent Science Board and very interesting on this subject. Dr. Weens.